Hidden Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 6. Somebody has given me poison. On November 9th, 1977, a date confirmed by TKG's diary, a local Vrindavan priest named Balarama Misra, whom Srila Prabhupada had long known, came to visit. He offered to perform a 1,000 tulasi leaf puja for Srila Prabhupada's recovery, and also he asked for money to repair his Chaitanya Mahaprabhu temple. Suddenly, seemingly out of the blue, Srila Prabhupada chose this old acquaintance, a most unlikely person, to casually inform that someone said that he has been poisoned. Srila Prabhupada raises the issue himself, unprompted. We note that Shastri and Balarama Misra had also known each other for a long time. Kaviraja, Shastri, Hindi, time 5:14, Ye apki darshan ke liye Balaramji Misra. Apjante hainko. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ke. Here is Balarama Misra come to see you. Do you know him? He is from Chaitanya. Balarama Misra, Bengali, Ami Edike Achi Maharaja. Ami Balarama Misra, Chinte Perekshan to Amache. I am over here, Maharaja. I am Balarama Misra. Do you recognize me? Srila Prabhupada Han. Yes, Balarama Misra, Bengali, Kaviraje Shonga Ama Wanke, Purono Alapache. Ta, Kalke Ama Shonge Dakai Holo. Bole, Maharaja Amai Dekekien. Ama to borrow Shubhagya to. Mane ei shutre amaro deka hoye jabe. Keno Bahudin Purbe Jokontakur Bosheni Takun. I am known to Kaviraja for a long time. Well, yesterday I met him, he said. Maharaja has called for me. It is a great honor for me. That is, this way I get a chance to meet you. Because many days ago, when the deity had not been installed, Srila Prabhupada, Bengali, okay, ekta chair dao. Give him a chair. Balarama Misra, Bengali, Han Ache, Ache Maharaja. Ami Bhablam Jadi Ektu Daka Kori Ashi Amio. Yes, Maharaja, it is here. I thought, if I could come and meet you, Srila Prabhupada, Huthat Oyegalo, Beskaj Cholchilo, Ki Jani Ki Holo. Suddenly I fell sick. Everything was all right. I don't know what happened. Is work going on well? Balarama Misra, Hain. Yes. Srila Prabhupada had earlier asked Shastri to request Balarama Misra to come see Srila Prabhupada about going to the Bombay ISKCON temple, opening to officiate as a priest. Perhaps Srila Prabhupada also had planned to reveal his mind to this Balarama Misra, whose son Dr. Sri Pran Gopalacharya knew Srila Prabhupada very well in the 1960s, when he was a college student in Vrindavan, and who also came with his father and attended this meeting. This is described by Gopal Acharya himself in Mula Prakriti Dasi's book, Our Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all. Prabhupada became very ill. So a Kaviraja who lived in Calcutta, named Damodar, attended to Prabhupada's treatment. Prabhupada sent a message to our residents to call Balarama Misra. Fortunately, I also went. Prabhupada was in his room and told us in Bengali, Baba, we are. Srila Prabhupada asked Balarama Misra to preside as the priest for the upcoming Bombay temple opening ceremonies. However, Srila Prabhupada first confided that he thought he was being poisoned. Srila Prabhupada, unintelligible, unknown whispers. Bengali, Ku bolije poison kore diesh, hot pare. Someone said that poison has been given. May be true. Balarama Misra, Kaviraja, Hindi, Kya farma rahe hai? What are you saying? Srila Prabhupada, Hindi, Koi bolta hai je koi poison dia hai. Someone has given poison. Kavirasha, Kisko, to whom? Srila Prabhupada, Mujhko. To me. The first and very curious question is, why did Srila Prabhupada not raise this issue first with his own trusted and intimate disciples? Why choose Balarama Misra, whom Srila Prabhupada had not seen for a long time? And then the second person to know of it was the Kaviraja, and both were outsiders. Why did Srila Prabhupada not simply tell Tamal, his personal secretary, or any one of his own disciples? NTAP has 2 pages arguing against the idea that Srila Prabhupada told outsiders first because he thought his disciples were the poisoners, as though the poison theory hinges on this detail, which of course it does not. Still, whoever he spoke to first or last, which is a side issue, Srila Prabhupada is talking of actually being poisoned. Srila Prabhupada, who was always perfectly guided by the Supersoul in every action and spoken word, made such a shocking revelation first to outsiders, and then by default his disciples and the entire world through his tape recorder. Of course, the tapes were controlled by Tamal, so maybe Srila Prabhupada was trying to bypass the tapes that went missing under Tamal's care. Srila Prabhupada's message was meant to reach beyond his circle of attendants, and perhaps he did this just to circumvent the poisoners, or to ensure the news got outside his rooms and the family. Tamal had for many months already set up a very tight security cordon around Srila Prabhupada. Only those screened by Tamal were allowed to see Srila Prabhupada, and most devotees, dignitaries, godbrothers, and locals were refused entry. Many who came to Vrindavan to see Srila Prabhupada could not enter and were frustrated. Many of Srila Prabhupada's old friends later said they were turned away. Nrsimhananda Goswami, Obli Kapoor, Vishwambhar Goswami, Dr. Khurana, Dr. Ghosh, Vri, etc. Is it any wonder that when an opportunity arose, Srila Prabhupada asked Shastri to bring Balarama Misra and tell him about his poisoning and get the word out to the Vrindavan locals, bypassing Tamal and ISKCON. This is the assumption. Tamal somehow missed this tape with so much on it. Still, Srila Prabhupada treated the matter rather casually. He said in Bengali, "Somebody said that someone poisoned him." The Kaviraja asked what he was saying, and Srila Prabhupada repeats himself in Hindi. Then, with "to me," he confirms he is speaking of himself. Srila Prabhupada is 1. Talking of actual poisoning. 2. Not just the symptoms of poisoning. And 3. He states it 3 times. We note that there are clearly 2 unknown persons to which Srila Prabhupada has made reference, namely the informant, someone, and the poisoner, somebody, neither of whom are identified. Dr. Sri Pran Gopalacharya, Balarama Misra's son, present when Srila Prabhupada first mentioned that someone told him he had been given poison, should be interviewed. He resides in Gopinath Bazaar near Banamali's dispensary, downtown Vrindavan. The photo is from Mulla Prakriti Dasi's book, Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All. Of course, ISKCON is quick to intimidate all witnesses into silence. We must not underestimate the great influence ISKCON wields, especially in India. Why would Srila Prabhupada initiate a discussion of his own poisoning if it were not true? Did Srila Prabhupada carelessly say these things in several separate discussions over 2 days because 1. He wanted to create confusion? To the contrary, everything he did was for establishing the Hare Krishna movement for the next 10,000 years, and that includes his spoken words on being poisoned. 2. He was speculating, rambling, or just plain cranky. Forgive the outrageous suggestions. 3. He brought up the subject of poisoning because he wanted to then later clearly state that he was not being poisoned. This is the GBC's ridiculous position, but this makes no sense at all. None of the above are sensible explanations. He said these things because they were true, and he wanted us to know that he thought he was being poisoned. That he did not aggressively pursue the matter is another discussion, and does not minimize the importance of what he did say. Perhaps the purpose to his revelation a few days before his departure was to leave the service of follow-up and investigation work to us, at least those who would take his words seriously. Kavi Raja, Hindi, time, 7:28. Khan Bolta Hai, who told that? Srila Prabhupada, yea, sab friends, all these friends, Bhakti Charu Swami, Bengali, Keboleche, Srila Prabhupada. Who said that, Srila Prabhupada? Srila Prabhupada Kebolech. They all say, Tamal Krishna Das. Unknown whispers, blowing conch. Kaviraja, Hindi, Apko Kon poison dega. Or Kisli dega. Who would give you poison? And why? Tamal, time 7:35. Who said that? Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. Time 7:48 to 52. I do not know. But it is said. Bells ringing from 7:21 to 7:50. Devotee whispers. Time 7:53 to 57. Indistinct. It's poison. Srila Prabhupada, Bengali, apne to Jyotish Janan? You do know astrology. Indistinct whispers by Svarupa Damodara. Kaviraha, Hindi, Kia bolte hain. What is he saying? Srila Prabhupada referred to a third party, an informant who had said that Srila Prabhupada was given poison, and the Kaviraja next asked as to who was saying this. The answer is, all these friends, and they all say. So who were these all these friends? Who were they? They all say refers to many persons. One very logical and sensible understanding is that the friends were the ones right there and present, namely the disciples and attendants of Srila Prabhupada. Bedridden and incapacitated, Srila Prabhupada hardly had the strength to raise an arm, and so he verbally pointed out those in his immediate presence as the ones who had said that he had been poisoned. Who else could he have meant? Visitors? No, because visitors would have already left, and could not be these. All these friends means plural and present persons, namely those caretakers who were then in Srila Prabhupada's room, or who regularly came. Another explanation of how Srila Prabhupada learned of his poisoning is from one of the three Kavirajas, who diagnosed poisoning in early November 1977. One of them, or someone they had told about their diagnosis, could have discreetly come to Srila Prabhupada and informed him about the discovery of poisoning and the symptoms of poisoning. Tamal did not know who told this to Srila Prabhupada, meaning someone told Srila Prabhupada while Tamal was not aware of it, perhaps in Hindi or Bengali. Shastri asks, "Who is saying?" And this indicates that it was not Shastri who had told Srila Prabhupada. When interviewed, Narottama Lal Gupta did not claim to have told Srila Prabhupada. Perhaps it was Bonamali, or another unknown person who had heard it from one of the Kavirajas that had determined poisoning. If Srila Prabhupada overheard all these friends, his disciples who were in his room, speaking or whispering about the poisoning, this is strikingly similar to the discovery of poison whispers which were overheard by the tape recorder. Ultimately, there are no secrets. Just like you are fighting with your enemies, that is very clear. The other party is my enemy. But if somebody's treating as your friend and within he's trying to kill you, enemy, oh, that is very dangerous enemy. Srila Prabhupada Lecture CC, ADI 7.109, February 20th, 1967. Maybe Srila Prabhupada heard some talk or whispers about poisoning in his room, but could not recognize who was talking about it, or if he knew, he did not want to point them out. It is also interesting to note that at first he says all these friends, but when pressed further by Tamal, he says, "I do not know," as though it was Tamal himself. It is unlikely that Srila Prabhupada did not know. As we see later, Tamal also thought Srila Prabhupada knew who it was who had told him about his poisoning and asked again. A comment from Prahlad Nrsimha Das, November 2017. Even the way Tamal asked Prabhupada, "Who told you, Prabhupada, that you were poisoned?" is very strange and sounds much more to be the question of someone who wants to know who had revealed the plot to poison Srila Prabhupada. Adridharan Das in 1999 made a technical analysis of Srila Prabhupada's statements about poisoning. Whether poisoning was confirmed by Srila Prabhupada beyond any iota of doubt, and NTAP used it in their no-poison position. But one opinion does not prove much at all. Adridharan was a ferocious adversary of the GBC and ISKCON Mayapur, India at that time. Jayapataka Swami sent 250 Mayapur disciples to physically storm the Calcutta temple in August 2001. Chasing temple president Adridharan into the street, and later charging him with embezzlement due to his poor record-keeping. Why does the GBC selectively quote from Adridharan in one instance, but expel him from Calcutta temple, refusing to hear his other opinions on ISKCON's guru system. The GBC were desperate to defend their no-poisoning position, forced to quote an adversary, hoping no one would notice. Adridharan's main point was that he felt Srila Prabhupada had not absolutely stated that he was definitely being poisoned. Nevertheless, Adridharan strongly advocated for further investigation, and he did not say that Srila Prabhupada denied being poisoned. The difference between these two positions is vast. Were GBC arguments so weak they had to quote from an avowed adversary? What we observe is that 3 times Srila Prabhupada stated that someone said that he was poisoned, twice recounted above, and again the next morning, November 10th. The fact that someone said that Srila Prabhupada was poisoned is affirmed and reinforced no less than 9 times by Srila Prabhupada himself before the end of these poison discussions. Although Srila Prabhupada so far only refers to someone else having said that he was poisoned, the subject was raised by Srila Prabhupada because he gave it very substantial credibility, or why bring it up at all? Note that Srila Prabhupada was told that he had actually been poisoned, and he says it was possible. The discussion then shifts to poisoning symptoms, which may confuse some, as they then look to equate symptoms to medicines or some illness. Later, Srila Prabhupada and his caretakers discuss extensively about actual homicidal poisoning, mentioning rakshasas, murder, court cases, ground glass in food, and so on. As colossal as a revelation of poisoning is, Srila Prabhupada only casually mentioned it, and then went on to discuss other things, like the Bombay temple opening. As quickly as Srila Prabhupada brought up the subject of poisoning, he then moved on to ask Balarama Misra if he knew astrology. He could have continued discussing his poisoning, but did not. After dropping a bombshell, the 3 further episodes of poison discussions were initiated by caretakers who were curious or disturbed about the matter. This appears to be the case from the available recorded tapes. Srila Prabhupada seems satisfied to have brought it up once, and afterwards he chose not to give much more information. Indeed, Srila Prabhupada appeared guarded, evasive, and reluctant to discuss the matter further, what to speak of revealing his mind fully. Even though it was a shocking topic to bring up, he casually diverts to other subjects. Srila Prabhupada chose not to make much fuss about being poisoned, as though he just wanted to plant the seed for a future investigation. Of course, this is where ISKCON leaders rationalize that if Srila Prabhupada did not aggressively pursue the matter of being poisoned, then why should we? And that this means there was no poisoning. They claim Srila Prabhupada would certainly have fought tooth and nail to protect his movement, all his hard work, and his own body so he could do his service. This argument has unfortunately lured many into thinking that if there was a poisoning, Srila Prabhupada would have stopped it. But there are other explanations. His bringing it up seemingly reluctantly can be explained as his resignation in the matter of imminent departure, or unwillingness to make commotion about himself. This is our considered understanding, explored more in chapter 101, his amazing tolerance. But although Srila Prabhupada may have been tolerant of his own poisoning, we, as his followers and disciples, must take a different attitude. It is our duty to find the truth and ensure justice is done. Can one obliged to Srila Prabhupada be so callous, as to not take his words seriously? Later, while Balarama Misra is still present, the Kaviraja returns to the topic of poisoning. Viraja, Hindi, time 2:05:15, Ye Maharaja, ye kotha ap kaise bola ajki koi bola haiki poison diya hai? Ya apko kucha bhaswa hai kya? This thing Maharaja. How did you say today that someone said somebody gave you poison? Did anyone tell, or you got some indication somewhere? Srila Prabhupada nehi. Aise koi bola ki dine aisa hota hai. Shed koi kitab me likha hai. No, someone said that these kind of symptoms manifest if someone is poisoned. Maybe there is such a mention in some book. Kaviraja. Ye kai karan se ho jata hai. Kacha mercury se ho jata hai. Ya koi cheez aisa hai jise ho jata hai par apkelikon karega. Ham tuye samakta haiki. Aise dev purush kelia koi manasik. Aisa vichar karega wobhi rakshasa demon hai. Yes, I know that such things happen if raw mercury is administered. Or there are some other things also which can cause such illness. But who will do such a thing to a godly person like you? According to me, if someone has such thoughts for you, then he is a Rakshasa demon. The Kaviraja asks about some abhas as confirmation of a poisoning that Srila Prabhupada was told about by an unknown person. Srila Prabhupada says no, that he was told by someone that he had poisoning symptoms. The audio tapes and transcript are clear in that no one disbelieves Srila Prabhupada's first poisoning statements, which were understood and acknowledged by everyone present. No one at that time tried to refute them, but decades later the GBC is trying to do exactly that. The GBC deniers should tell Srila Prabhupada not to say these useless and ridiculous things. Why does the ISKCON GBC have no abhas of honesty themselves? Amazingly, they do not have any concern over all these discussions about actual homicidal poisoning. Why would the Kaviraja say that maybe a Rakshasa or demon gave Srila Prabhupada poison? There were many affirmations of those present at the time who were shocked by Srila Prabhupada's words. Even Shastri later said, "There must be some truth to it. There's no doubt." Srila Prabhupada elaborates that someone said that when poisoned, a person will develop the symptoms as was seen in Srila Prabhupada's physical condition. Srila Prabhupada gave enough credence to the idea of having these symptoms of poisoning that he himself brought it up. Yet the GBC claims Srila Prabhupada's poisoning symptoms were due to his diabetes. By this point in the poison discussions, Srila Prabhupada has 1. Earlier stated that someone said that somebody had poisoned him 2. And he also adds that someone said that he had the symptoms of poisoning 3. And he said that these poisoning symptoms may be described in some book. In anticipation of the GBC emphasis on having only poison symptoms, while neglecting the statements of actual poisoning, we note that Srila Prabhupada spoke both about being actually poisoned and having the symptoms of poisoning. Not only did Srila Prabhupada hear about his being poisoned from all these friends, perhaps by overhearing their talking or whispers, but he also heard that he had the symptoms of poisoning from someone whom Srila Prabhupada felt was qualified to recognize them. Otherwise, why bring all this up if there was no poisoning, as the GBC book Intyap asserts, or if Srila Prabhupada gave the idea no credence? Srila Prabhupada was also fully qualified on his own to recognize poisoning symptoms due to his medical expertise. Srila Prabhupada's preeminent qualifications as a lifelong chemist, pharmacist, compounder of medicines, and a supremely empowered and perfected mystic yogi, his own recognition that he had poisoning symptoms cannot be ignored nor challenged. Of course, he knew the symptoms and effects of poisons and medicines. From What is the Difficulty by Srutakirti Das, page 55. Srila Prabhupada knew very well the symptoms of all disease. After all, he was a pharmacist for years. As far as I could tell, he knew everything. The Kaviraja Shastri, an experienced and highly qualified man, grappled with the outrageousness of the poisoning revelation. His mention that only a demon would think about maliciously poisoning a saint shows that he is taking the talk of Srila Prabhupada's being poisoned most seriously. The Kaviraja does not go along with the GBC rationale that Srila Prabhupada is contradicting his own earlier statements by now qualifying that he was told only of having symptoms and not actual poisoning. He accepts that there is talk of an actual poisoning and talk of the symptoms. Why else talk of demons if he thought Srila Prabhupada was only talking about some bad medicine, as the GBC claims? Shastri took it so seriously he pondered over which poisons could cause his symptoms, mentioning mercury. Symptoms of the various heavy metals are generally similar. Heavy metal poisoning is normally not suspected, detected, nor confirmed, without a hair, urine, or blood test specific to each heavy metal. These tests were never undertaken until 1999 to 2005. However, the limited understanding that Srila Prabhupada was clarifying his previous statements about being poisoned to mean only having poisoning symptoms. Still, that should be great reason for alarm and to support a full, unbiased, and well-facilitated investigation. After all, the reason for having poisoning symptoms likely was due to actual poisoning. Srila Prabhupada did not say he had diabetes symptoms. He said poisoning symptoms. He knew the difference and spoke accordingly. Srila Prabhupada knew about diabetes symptoms, and he would not confuse them with poisoning symptoms. Neither should we. Poisoning symptoms are due to poisoning, and since all doctors failed to give a definite diagnosis, that only further points to a hidden poisoning. Srila Prabhupada was definitely poisoned homicidally, as has been confirmed beyond a doubt. So in any interpretation of his words, we still have a very serious bill of complaint that demands attention, requiring an appropriate investigation. Hollow denials from the GBC will not suffice. The GBC claims he, Srila Prabhupada, replies that it was the talk from the day before about the possibility that someone poisoned him. Sometimes the GBC say it is poisoning, and at other times only poisoning symptoms. They are inconsistent liars and should never be believed, no matter what they say.